Hello YouTube friends and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Deidre from our Upcycled Life. I do lots of thrifting, upcycling, repurposing, and DIY content. And I love new crafting friends. So make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any great DIY content. A couple weeks ago, I did a video on my dump finds that I upcycled and you guys loved it. Guess what? I have more junk from the dump and I'm ready to upcycle some of it. So today I have some projects of stuff that I actually just got out of the metal scrap bin or out of the wood pile. All of it was free. All of it is unique and I actually pulled it out of my shed. I'm not even sure what I'm gonna do with it yet, but I'm gonna show you what I've got and then I'm gonna get my brain going and I'm gonna upcycle this stuff. The first thing that I have to upcycle is these tins. And it's really dirty and they're really yucky, but there's 3 of them. They're nesting inside and they're really rusty and in really not that great a shape. The paint anyways, the actual metal is in good shape. So I'm gonna upcycle these. And I found this. I'm not 100% sure. If anybody knows, let me know down in the comments. I think this might have been off of a lantern. Obviously it's broken, it's missing pieces, but I just love the ornate look of it. I have an idea of what I'm gonna do with this, so stay tuned for that. I have some bits and pieces of hardware that I pulled out of the scrap metal. I've got some chain, I've got a little hinge, and I've got a big hinge. Just some scrap things that I'm going to use towards some of the projects. I've got some chain that I've got an idea for. And who doesn't love an old frying pan? Already know what I'm doing with this actually, and it's a really cool idea. And 2 old drawer pulls. These are gorgeous, huge, and probably from the 50s or the 60s off of a dresser. So I'm gonna upcycle something with those. A piece of scrap wood out of the wood pile that's already been cut. I like the shape of it. And I'm gonna put something together with that. And this looks like it was just an old door maybe taken off of something. It's got some slats on the back. It's just pine. And I have an idea of what I'm gonna do for that too. I got lots of work. So let's get started. Okay, first project is an old aluminum, I think, frying pan. I have a really great idea to use this in the garden. I've taken this down to the sink and I've given it a really good scrub with some soapy water. And now I'm going to use some alcohol and clean the inside of it because we're going to put some Cricut graphics on this. I've designed some graphics. We're going to print it off on our Explore 3. I got my graphics all weighted and the transfer tape on, and I'm just going to peel them off and put them on my frying pan. Make sure I have it nice and centered. And we'll get it stuck down. And I've made a fun sign for the garden. The handle of the frying pan, I've just stuck into the dirt. We have only frozen ground here right now, but once I'm ready to put my garden in, this is going to go out there as decor. This is going to be a really easy upcycle. I'm just going to turn this into a hanging plant hanger. I'm going to use this as the base. Find a pot that will fit in here. I think it would look beautiful with a nice ivy in it. And I am going to use this old chain that I found out of the scrap metal bin to use as the hanger. This was such an easy upcycle, and I'm pretty sure that was probably off an old antique lantern. I just love the bottom of it. It's so ornate and beautiful. I filled it up with some greenery. The chain makes it easy to hang. I love the way it upcycled. Who doesn't love old canisters? I kind of wish I could save these because I love the retro look of it. I'm gonna clean them all up and then see what they look like and see if I can save it. If not, I might have to go to plan B and paint them. So I'm gonna give them all a really good scrub. I really didn't want to upcycle these. I kind of wanted to keep the original look on them, but I wasn't really 100% sure. So I went to my community tab and I put a post and I asked all of you guys what you thought. Overwhelming, leave it the way that it is. And that's what I've decided to do. I'm not going to do anything to these at all. The only thing that I might do, I might clear coat them with a polyacrylic sealer. But right now, I'm going to leave them just the way they are because I know somebody will love these in their primitive home. You guys know I love my farmhouse signs. I'm going to make a very rustic farmhouse sign with all of this stuff. Put something together with one of my great graphics. I'm going to use the chain and turn it into a hanger on the top when it's all finished. So lots of work. Let's get started on this. We are all ready to work on our sign. I'm going to put a base coat of some black homemade chalk paint. Whenever you're wanting to do the Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer, you always want to make sure that you pick a piece of wood that's really smooth. I'm always up for a challenge, and this is not really smooth in this area right here. I'm going to take a little bit of wood filler and just fill it in so it's a little bit smooth. Because what happens when I go to rub the paper off, it gets all in these little grooves and it makes it really difficult. So just to make my life a little bit easier down the road, I'm going to put in a little bit of wood filler. I probably should have done this step on the raw wood, but I always get excited when I'm starting a project. But that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let this completely dry now. I'll let all that wood filler dry. Actually, my wood filler was kind of watery. I think it's almost at its end of its day. I need to buy a new one. But that's okay because it worked out really well because it smoothed over really good and filled in all those little creases of wood that I wanted to get covered up. Going to let this completely dry, give it a light sanding, and then I'll put another coat of black paint over top of it. This is a lot smoother now that I've got the wood filler on there. It'll be easier to rub off my graphic when I need to. I want to keep an outside edge that looks like a border of the black paint. So I've got my painter's tape and I'm just going to put that all around the outside. I've got it all taped off and I'm just going to take some black and just paint along the side of that tape. So if we have any bleed through, the black will show and not the white. Just going to put a touch of candle wax on this just to distress it just a little bit, and I'm going to rub it all along that whole opening. And now we're ready to put on a coat of white chalk paint. All dry. Let's see what we have underneath this tape. Ah, perfect. That's going to be a really great base for my sign. Let's make this look a little bit more rustic and chippy. Gonna take it out to my shed, give it a really good sanding. I'm going to do my Mod Podge reverse graphics on this. I love this quote. It's in my Etsy store if you want to grab it. Make sure you use the code SAVE50 for 50% off. I think it's going to work out really well with all the bits and pieces that I want to put on it also. I have sized this on 2 pieces of paper. It's really easy. You just size it up until you get the size of your sign that you want. I'm just going to cut off the little extra paper on the top and the bottom and get putting it on our project. This is sat overnight. It's all dry. I'm going to take my damp rag with just a little bit of water, and we're going to rub off all of this paper. I've got all the paper rubbed off. I'm going to seal it up really well with my polyacrylic sealer. Top coat's all dry. I have all these little bits and pieces of stuff I've collected along the way, and I thought it would be really nice to kind of put them on this sign to display and just give it a little bit more interest than just a plain sign. So I've got some old screws that I've collected from other projects that I've done. I'm going to use those to screw everything on the sign. This was an excellent way to use up all those little bits and pieces of hardware I had collected along the way, and a perfect graphic to add to that sign. Love finding beautiful pieces of wood in this scrap wood pile. This is really nice and solid, and I am going to turn it into a serving tray. These old handles, they've got some paint that's been splashed on them. It actually almost looks like an enamel paint. I don't think it's going to come off very easy. So I'm going to spruce these up and do a nice finish on this and turn this into a serving tray. This is when I put the handles on, this already had a handle on it at some point, and the holes are exactly where it needs to be. So I'll mount this right here, and then I'll measure on this side to make sure that it's even. So this is already done and easy for me. I'm going to put my first coat of paint on. I'm going to put a coat of my black homemade chalk paint. First coat's all dry. Breaking out the candle wax. I love using the candle wax to distress, and this has got lots of lines and curves where we can put that wax on to make a fantastic chippy finish. I had a follower mention in one of my comments that I don't use enough color. The one reason why I don't use a lot of color, especially in the stuff that I'm making, is if you're doing it to resale, white, black always sells. As soon as you introduce any sort of fancy color, it's harder to sell. That being said, I'm keeping this for myself, and I am feeling colorful today. I am going to layer up all kinds of colors on this and do a real chippy layered color paint. I'm first coat going to use some acrylic yellow paint. All dry, some more wax, and we're going to put on some peacock blue. We are good and layered. I've got my scraper out. I'm going to scrape away at this. The first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to heat that wax back up, get it nice and melted, and then scrape away. I thought the colors were a bit too bold. I want to tone it down just a little bit. So I have some, just a little splash of almost like a baby blue. I'm just going to swipe on a little bit here and there just to tone it down just a little bit. Now for the magic potion, some Elmer's school glue. I'm going to put a crackle layer on the top and then put some white paint on, and we're going to have all those colors showing through. The more glue you put on, the thicker the crackle. The thinner that you put it on, the thinner the crackle. And I'm just going to spread it all over the whole piece of wood. It's a little bit messy, but it's so worth the end result. And you want to get it right out to the edges because you want that crackle to be all the way across all of the wood. This is going to be such a fun, funky tray. I'm excited to see how it's going to turn out. It sat for about a minute. Now we're going to take our white chalk paint, and the trick with this technique working really well is to not work the paint into the glue. You want to do long strokes, up and back, no more than twice. So up and back, and then up and back. And we're going to do that across the whole piece of wood. If you're working that paint into the glue, you're not going to have any crackles show up. This is such a fun technique to watch it all come together too, as you start to see all of the paint peek through. Such a fabulous technique if you haven't tried it. Okay, we're gonna leave that. Gonna take a couple hours and let it dry. This is completely dried and crackled, and look at the color and the crackles in this. It turned out just amazing. And I am now going to give it a really good sanding. I'm going to take it out to my shed, use an 80 grit sandpaper, and sand all of this and really make it distressed, and it'll make the colors pop even more. Fantastic. I love it. I'm going to paint the handles a nice yellow color, I think, to match this yellow that's peeking through here. I don't do much with a lot of color, and I thought that would make this into a really fun tray if I painted these yellow. I'm going to take them outside and spray paint them. Here's a little trick that I like to do when I'm spray painting. This is just a takeout food container. There's little screws in the bottom of these handles. I've pressed them into the styrofoam. It keeps them up, and you can spray them really well with spray paint. Grab them out of your recycling bin. I'm going to seal this up really good. I have some polyacrylic sealer, satin based, and I'm probably going to put 2 or 3 coats of this on this tray. The tray's all finished from that scrap wood. I love the way the handles turned out. I kind of distressed them a little bit, and the boards distressed beautifully. Successful. I would love to know what one was your favorite today. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.